This time on PedalBox, we're dealing with the most divisive thing we've ever done on the car, the front section of the roof, which is all foam underneath. And as many of you predicted, it wasn't going to survive. And we've kind of tried to make the best of it, but right now, it's really getting a bit too much. So we've been trying to make do and mend with this for months and months and months, as only this corner was actually causing us a problem. It was a little bit too soft and we thought we can just push some resin in there, try and firm it up so that we're not going to have to replace the entire thing. Then we put the windscreen in and it just doesn't flow really nicely into what we'd already made. So there is this weird dip where the windscreen is lower than the roofline at the side, but higher in the middle. Not a major problem, but just an aesthetic annoyance more than anything. However, now that this is completely caving in, and I can push my thumb half an inch in and bits of the bodywork, well, the filler that we used to smooth it out, are now coming off, it is actually time to do a permanent fix to this portion of the roof. And I'm not looking forward to it. I've not been looking forward to it the entire time I've been looking at this, and I've been putting off and putting off, going, we'll just fix it, we'll make do and mend. And I have finally admitted there is no make do and mend with this. We have to start over. So the first step is to get all of this foam and the broken filler off this section. There is some good news. The stuff we had at the front where the windscreen is actually okay. It is nice and firm, like there is no deflection in that. And if I can avoid disturbing the silicone around the windscreen, I absolutely will. So we might not be able to get rid of this aesthetic annoyance, but if we can, that is absolutely on the cards. There's a couple options for rebuilding this up, but we'll come onto them after we've got rid of all of this and seen exactly what the damage is underneath.
All told, that is even worse than I ever expected it to be. I wasn't super confident in the foam structure, but I didn't expect it to fail this early or this badly. So obviously, as Aid's already showed you, the roof kind of gave way, the resin and filler and everything we put on the top had gone kind of compressible. That wasn't the biggest problem. It looked bad, but that wasn't really the nastiest. The biggest problem is underneath. We actually had an entire pool of water out in the passenger side corner over there. It wasn't just damp, like it was actually wet under there. You can see on here the black of the corrosion that had happened on that plate over there. So we've taken it all the way back to metal. We've wire wheeled off absolutely everything. We're back to a fresh start here, which means we can actually do a proper ground up new attempt at this. I often joke on our streams about how 3D printers are like cursed hammers, which when wielded make everything look like nails, especially your thumbs. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, we've decided this is another nail that we should hit with the hammer that is our 3D printer. Hopefully it doesn't become a thumb. So the current plan, to the extent that we have one, is we're going to print in 4 pieces, just because that's the dimensions that we have available on our print bed, a new forehead for the car. Now, each piece is obviously going to be like pinned to the next one over with like dowels or bolts or something. We haven't worked out the very detailed specifics, but it'll be something like that. We'll end up with one big structure that we can pop down on here. One thing that makes it a little bit tricky, and we did struggle with this for a short while, is the really big ripples that we've got in this plate that we've got over here. We put this in a very long time ago, you might remember, and back then we were still in the phase of everything has to be seam welded. So this is completely welded all the way across, front and back. And at the time we didn't really know how to control the heat and control the warping, so this is just really, really wavy, really bad. And we were like, okay, well, once we've made the thing, we could put it on and we could figure out where the high spot is and we could hit the plastic with a flat wheel to shave it down, and like, it'd be a nightmare. It'd take so long to fettle it in and dial it in. But we've realized, thankfully, that we've got this piece of flat bar just behind here, which when I look along it, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close to dead flat. And if we put like a little piece of neoprene, pad or something on it, just a couple of mil, we can basically pretend it's flat. And the front is much the same, where we built it around that initial frame. So it's only really the middle that we have to worry about. So if we can build something that just sits on the front and back edges and is kind of, you know, at least internally kind of has clearance in the middle, we can just completely ignore all of the waves in here and just have it sat spanning from the front to the rear, from just behind the windscreen onto this flat bar, and then to actually anchor it in place, not to pull it down onto the metal for the same reason, but just to kind of hold it in place. We can put bolts through from underneath, through holes that will punch in this into like heat press inserts in the plastic, just to hold it kind of like that. So we're not going to pull the plastic down in the middle onto the metal here, it's just going to anchor the front and back in compression. So hopefully that's all going to work out. Aid's inside right now on FreeCAD, modelling up the shape of the windscreen and the shape of this whole sort of elongated D here. I think of it as the Higaran mothership from Homeworld because I'm a massive nerd, but it is a pretty easy shape to model and work with, so we're hoping that we can take this arc of the windscreen here and just kind of sweep it around, replicate it up here, and then just kind of connect the two. So it's not a very complicated piece as it turns out. Fast forward a couple hours, we've got our first printed piece on the car ready to test. So we found out we're a little bit short fore and aft. We can't quite reach the back of the windscreen, so that's a fairly easy fix for us. The front corner here is a little clumsy. We're probably just going to go with filler and vibes, just blend that in with some body filler later on. But there is one thing we do actually want to fix on this. We had the bright idea, since we're now doing this in CAD, we're able to control all the dimensions properly, whereas before we were just kind of figuring everything out as we went along. We thought we'd try to match the apex of the new roofline to the back half of the roof. So we actually went to the height of this corner section here and tried to match it. And as it turns out, when we look at the car from the front, now this is only a fairly small piece, so this isn't really a great way to test the visual, but it's certainly better than testing it once we've printed the whole way across. When we had a look at it from in front and from behind, it just looks a bit tall. It's angled quite steeply, and then when you see it from behind, it's a really big slab of black plastic on the back. So we're going to bring this down a little bit, and we're actually probably going to bring it pretty much back to where the original line was. So this here is part of the original dam that made up the back of our roof line. If I set this on the end, and this is from the highest point, because it's from the middle, we're at the top of the arc. We're not even 6 inches into the width of the car, and already the new roofline is taller, and it's still going. And yeah, it's just a bit too tall. So we're probably going to bring this down about 10 or 15 mil or so and see how that looks. We've gone through a couple iterations on this corner piece. This is the one that we started out with, I mentioned was too high, so we've taken it down quite a bit there and carried on all the way across the middle of the car while Aid's been fettling in the curve and making it match the windscreen. And this actually looks really, really good in person. If you look directly side on, the curvature of the screen follows up into this really nicely. From above, it tracks the curve of the windscreen around really well. Obviously, we do still have this corner to deal with, but that's going to be a problem for some body filler. Just smooth it into the right shape. And this is just about ready to do the final 2 pieces for the other end, which are in the printer now, and actually put it all together with some glue.
Well, it's been a couple of weeks and we've had a massive shift in the weather, which is really nice. We've got our 2 pieces of roof all done. Unfortunately, there are some modifications that we need to make. This one fits really nicely on the far side of the car. We've also beaten down the center of this panel so there's no crown to it. So we just have the front edge and the back edge to mount it to, which is going to make life significantly easier. But this one still has a little bit of a wobble to it. But that's not too bad. We can take that out, or we might just pack it one way or another to keep that side as it is, because it's really not that extreme and it does fit around the windscreen and onto the panel pretty nicely. Unfortunately, this side is a different story. The piece on this side unfortunately needs a lot more work. It's unsurprising because we didn't really take too many measurements. We just mirrored it one side to the other and hoped for the best, judging on a few measurements that we took that said it should work, and it didn't. The front extends out a little bit too far. You can see we have this overhang right above the windscreen, so that's going to have to come off, but that's not actually too difficult. Because it's only this section, we could just trim that off, print a new piece out, or we can cut this back, which is what I'm going to do at least initially, just to see how far back we need to get to. Just trim this, work out exactly what profile we need, and if we can get away with it, fantastic. We absolutely will. The bigger problem is the pivot, this rocking motion across this line from this corner here to about the middle of this center section, and that is a real problem. We can't just keep eating down into the metal here. This is fairly thin and we'll eventually just hit a cavity, and that's definitely not what we want. This is all nice and sealed at the moment, so we really don't want to do that. So we're going to have to carve out the inside of this, probably just being really lazy with a flapper wheel on the angle grinder, at least to begin with, whilst we cut this down and get it to the right shape. But hopefully, if we can drop this down low enough, we can take out not only a bunch of the tip, but also make this fit a lot nicer onto here, because I can pretty much get my finger in underneath there. After all that, both of these are now moving significantly less. I managed to get rid of almost all of the rock out of the one on the right and reduce the one on the left quite a lot. Turns out the middle spot right here was just a little bit of a peak and they were both rocking on there. So taking down the front corner a little bit just to remove that, moved the pivot further along, but ultimately the more I take out of there, the more it's going to affect the profile, because really we wanted this to be a little bit higher up so it flowed from the windscreen. And if we keep taking that front edge further and further and further down, we're going to end up back where we were before, which isn't that great. This one, I've taken out lots and lots of material from this far end to get over that bump that I noticed before, and a big sculpt out of this end as well, a load off the back, and now this one fits really, really nicely. So next we can join these two together and they should sit nicely on here and shouldn't rock. That's the theory anyway. We'll see whether it works in practice. So here's the whole thing glued together and we can fit it back onto the car. And obviously aligning is going to be a bit more critical when we actually glue it in place. I'm going to get some 5-minute epoxy to stick this down with. Hopefully, we then should be able to just use filler across the top to get the actual contour that we want, get rid of all of these lines, sand it down, and then put some paint on it. I'm a little concerned about getting epoxy onto the windscreen, so I'm going to put something across the front, like a dam, to try and stop it running down, because I think getting that off will be an absolute nightmare. But the 5-minute epoxy is not going to arrive until tomorrow. The sun is starting to go down, so I think that is about everything I can do today. Well, it's been about an hour since I put the last of the epoxy down and it has completely cured, or pretty much cured at the surface anyway. I'm sure there's still probably some of the thicker bits that aren't quite there. It says 5-minute epoxy, but it does say an hour to fully cure. I went around the perimeter, as you probably saw me doing. I didn't video the entirety of it. Frankly, it was far too stressful doing that. And the rest was just me going around all of the seams, trying to force it in underneath to get a little bit more contact area and also stop it from being able to lift up or push down and risk breaking any of those seals on the main face. So now all across this back edge has a big bead really across the back, which I've pushed underneath, and that's holding really, really well. There is no flex in this anymore. It is completely gone off. The corners went reasonably well. There is still gaps underneath the very outside apexes on both of these. That was never going to go away with epoxy, and I wasn't going to be able to pile it up inside. This stuff's been a lot easier to work with than the last stuff that I used, which was really more pouring epoxy, and I had to kind of work it to try and keep it in the area I wanted. This was a lot thicker, which was much, much better. One thing I will say is when they provide you with gloves, you should definitely use them, because I got covered trying to keep all of this around. That said, because it didn't flow, I probably didn't need quite as much of a dam with all of this tape around here as I've actually made, but it definitely caught a few drips, which is going to make life a little bit easier. So now this is all done in. I'm going to leave this overnight before I put anything else on it, just to make sure it is absolutely cured, because there are still a few spots where it's quite thick just underneath various overhangs and things that I want to be completely solid before I do anything else. Then we can put some Bondo on this, get it all smoothed out, and then start shaping the front, because that's going to take a few goes as well, because there's quite a bit we need to pack underneath here. I might try and use some high density foam, some of those EVA mats, because they shouldn't be able to get too wet being underneath this and on the edge of a slope. Unless water is being driven up inside, it shouldn't actually get soaked, and it shouldn't cause us the same kind of problem we had before. Plus, being a closed cell, very tightly packed foam, they're not going to absorb very much water anyway, which is much, much better. So perhaps that's what we should have used the first time as well. All in all, it's been a lot of work today for what really amounts to a minute of video, maybe even less than that, to get this glued in place. But I am really happy with how it's gone. I don't think I could have asked for much more other than not getting covered in quite so much epoxy.
Well, fast forward a few days, the resin should have set on here quite nicely by now, and I have returned from Wales for a bit more pedal boxing. So I'd mentioned there's a couple of voids in here that we're going to have to check out. So we're going to peel all of this tape off, have a look in there, make sure it's all set right, and start packing it all up with Bondo. Well, that all came off a lot easier than the tape on the Thunderbird some years ago. Nice quick job. And now that we can see all around underneath, it's actually looking pretty good. It's very solid in place. It's not going anywhere. There are some voids that we mentioned, but now that we can see in, we can actually start thinking about sorting them. We're a little bit high on the outsides here, so we might do a little bit of subtle reshaping, but we'll figure that out in a minute.
Another couple of days have gone by and I've spent that time just shaping this and bringing it all up so it's roughly the right shape on both sides. On the right hand side, just where the windscreen is, that little step up was really more of a cliff at that side compared to a little rounded edge on this side. So we had to take a bunch of plastic off the top, then obviously build that infill up to create a new surface that we could then smooth out to get something approximately the same. It's definitely not the same both sides, certainly not a mirror image of one another, but then I don't think any of the car really is. So we managed to get that up to the right shape, blend this corner in as well. I appreciate with the sun behind me, it's going to be a little bit difficult to see with the shadows and everything else, but hopefully you'll see better later once this is all dried. We've got another coat of primer on, and then hopefully we'll get some paint on before the end of the day, and maybe even some lacquer. Putting all this back together has been about 4 weeks in the making. I've been going over time and time again, just trying to smooth it out and get rid of these join lines between the 6 segments that make up this little roof cap. And unfortunately, I have not succeeded. Now the reason for that is I've been going very, very thin because I didn't want to put a big thick layer on. I know I said I was probably going to do that just to bring it up into the windscreen, but I'm pretty happy with how it goes. And in addition to that, I actually don't have enough filler to do that and to bring this level up in line with the windscreen at the middle. So I definitely don't have enough filler in order to build this up all the way across the whole thing. So for now, I've got it pretty smooth. There are these little lines. We've thrown some paint on it because ultimately if we get any rain, this is going to ruin all of that filler and we're potentially going to have to start again, which I definitely don't want. Now it still needs a little bit of lacquer putting on it. This is just painted at the moment, but ultimately I need to get this on because I'm currently filming this the day of release for the video. That's how long this has taken. We started this well in advance and it's been going on whilst we've been filming other episodes, but now I have actually run out of other edited video. I have to get this one out, so you're all just seeing this in its natural satin look rather than having the lacquer put over the top. It's looking significantly better than it did before, and obviously it's actually quite durable compared to what it was before. So I am really happy with how it's come out. The way it's blended into the A-pillars has turned out as good as I could have possibly expected. So that's a really, really good improvement, and we don't have to worry about this anymore. And I can stop stressing about how part of the bodywork and the paint on this is just sinking into itself with the elements. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. You were absolutely correct when you told us that that wasn't going to work. Unfortunately, in the intervening couple of years, we got a printer and we could actually make something a little bit more durable. If you'd like to support us, you can go to shop.pedalbox.show where you can buy t-shirts, mugs, hats and more. And if you're a patron, thank you very much for sticking with us all the way through this build if you've been here from the start. You can join them at patreon.com/pedalboxshow, and if you're already a patron or become a patron, you will get discount at shop.pedalbox.show for anything you want to buy. Once again, thanks very much for watching. Feel free to put "I told you so" in the comments below because any engagement is good engagement, and we'll see you on the next video.